Hey guys, today I'll show you a fantasy horror TV series named Wednesday, Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins with a goth-like girl named Wednesday Addams, whose life is a stark contrast of black and white. Her standoffish demeanor keeps others at bay, and the bullies target her younger brother instead. Wednesday feels a frustrating sense of disappointment at her brother's weakness as he can't even remember who was responsible. When she unties him after an incident, a strange thing happens. She vividly sees her brother being bullied and suffering in her mind. But she doesn't tell him, as she's been troubled by unexplained visions lately. These visions come unheralded, leaving her confused. Clearly, Wednesday can sense the past events. Now that she knows who the real culprit is, she decides to take revenge. Soon, she located the bullies and confronted them. But the boys didn't take Wednesday seriously, mocking her as a freak. But her stance was clear. Only she was allowed to bully her own brother. With that said, she pulled out 2 large bags full of piranhas. The boys fled for their shitty lives in terror, but they couldn't outrun the fish that came all the way to their private but smelly parts. Seeing the bully leader don a mask of pain, Wednesday finally revealed a sinister yet satisfied grin. Although she had her revenge, she couldn't stay at the school anymore. The bullies accused Wednesday of causing injury. Fortunately, her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Addams, stepped in to settle the matter, sending Wednesday to Nevermore Academy. It was the perfect place for their daughter. It was where they had fallen in love, and it housed a group of students just like her. Wednesday was unfazed by the accusation of causing injury. She just regretted not finishing what she started and held no expectations for her new environment. Nevermore Academy is located in the secluded town of Jericho. The town's residents have prejudices against the academy, often calling its students outcasts. But there are some daring adventurers who explore the surrounding woods. In this eerie atmosphere, a man starts feeling something is amiss. Suddenly, a wild beast lunges at him. It's a thrilling sight to behold. Meanwhile, the Addams family accompanied their daughter and arrived at the academy under a downpour. The name Wednesday struck Principal Weems as unusual, and she initially assumed she was named for the day of her birth. But it turns out she was born on a Friday. The name came from her mother's favorite nursery rhyme, "Wednesday's child is full of woe." The principal discovered she had attended 8 schools in 5 years. When asked why, Wednesday explained that no school had been built yet that could accommodate her, and this one would be no exception. The principal wasn't bothered, stating that while the academy didn't usually admit students mid-term, Wednesday's excellent grades, the long history between the Addams family and the school, plus the fact that Mrs. Addams and Principal Weems were former roommates, led the board to make an exception. Although she was not held legally responsible, she was required to attend therapy. Fortunately, the school had a partnership with a local psychologist in Jericho town. Wednesday's dormitory was in the bright and colorful hall. Her new roommate, Enid, was enthusiastic, but Wednesday was exceptionally cold. Mr. Addams had to explain that she always appears to be half dead and hoped the roommate would get used to it. In fact, Wednesday was allergic to colors, which caused her skin to hive and then peel off her bones. She even needed a specially made school uniform. Enid then took her on a tour of the school. Nevermore Academy, built in 1791, was designed to educate freaks and mutants like themselves. Mrs. Addams had once been the captain of the fencing team here. Wednesday believed that her mother's efforts to send her here were to make her a copy of herself, so she didn't plan to stay long. The courtyard was filled with students, divided into various small groups. Like normal schools, there were different categories: fangs, beasts, scales, and stones. The fangs were youthful-looking vampires, some of whom had been living there for decades. The beasts were werewolves like Enid, who would transform and howl like a goose at the full moon. That's why noise-canceling headphones were recommended. The scales were mermaids, like the girl Bianca was practically the queen of the academy, though her crown was shaky. She had been with the masochistic artist, Xavier, but they broke up at the start of the term for unknown reasons. As for the stones, Wednesday lost interest halfway through the explanation. Before saying goodbye, her mother warned Wednesday not to even think about running away. No matter where she went, an Addams family member would be the first to contact her. This deepened Wednesday's rebellious sentiment. She told her mother that she would do everything possible to escape this educational prison. Mrs. Addams, with a meaningful look, urged her to enjoy campus life, as it would change her life. As a parting gift, she gave Wednesday a necklace with their initials on both sides made of obsidian, once used in rituals to summon illusions. Wednesday didn't make much of it, never expecting that this necklace would end up changing her life. Mr. Addams, fearing loneliness for his daughter, flipped a switch, and then a lively right hand fell down, tasked with keeping an eye on Wednesday. And so a tale full of fantasy began. Elsewhere, a murder was discovered in the forest by the police. An adventurous man had been brutally dismembered. His head was found at his feet, his torso and one arm not far from his body, and one leg was discarded near a lake. Astonishingly, another arm was hanging from a tree. The whereabouts of the remaining body parts are still unknown. This incident matches the characteristics of 2 other attacks last week. The sheriff decided to issue a warning for travelers to stay away from the forest, publicly citing a bear attack. Regardless of the type of animal responsible, the sheriff had a vague feeling that this incident was related to the nearby Nevermore Academy, which is known to teach a group of freaks with supernatural powers. However, there was no evidence to prove this. As night fell, the gothic girl, Wednesday, ripped half the decorations off her window. This effectively divided her room in half, creating a stark contrast. One half was colorful, the other was monochromatic black and white. Her roommate, although quite dissatisfied, had to bear with it since the dormitory was shared. In retaliation, she resorted to playing music and dancing. Wednesday warned her roommate because she intended to write a novel. Enid, an underdeveloped werewolf, was not one to be messed with either. Just as the two were in a standoff, the dormitory supervisor, Marilyn, barged in, breaking the tense atmosphere. Clearly coming from the garden, she was there to welcome Wednesday and presented her with a flower. Having reviewed Wednesday's admission statement in advance, Marilyn immediately thought of a black dahlia, which matched Wednesday's demeanor perfectly. Marilyn, the only normal person in the entire academy, was very observant and had strong insight. After introducing the dormitory rules, Wednesday asked if she could go to Jericho Town. Marilyn said she could apply for special permission, but cautioned that the locals were somewhat wary of the outcasts accepted into Nevermore Academy. The key was not to cause any trouble or deepen the locals' prejudice, and most importantly, not to cause any deaths. The next day, Wednesday attended her first fencing class at the academy. The ugly hand her father had sent was secretly following her like a peeping Tom. At that moment, a male student named Rowan was knocked to the ground. The mermaid, Bianca, arrogantly asked the coach when a real opponent would finally appear. Wednesday, who was naturally competitive, was there to challenge the strongest in this place. So the two quickly entered a battle state. Wednesday quickly scored a point, but Bianca instantly leveled the score. Believing the first point was just luck, she suggested there was no need to continue. Unable to bear this, Wednesday proposed a military challenge without helmets and blunted swords, declaring the match would be decided by first blood. Bianca was somewhat incredulous, and the coach left the decision to her. Bianca agreed to the challenge. After some fierce fighting, Bianca eventually prevailed, and Wednesday was made to bleed and tasted the bitterness of defeat. While being treated in the medical room, the humble Rowan tried to befriend her but was ignored by Wednesday. It was pouring rain outside. As she walked out of the medical room, a stone statue on the roof was secretly moving and fell towards where Wednesday was standing. Fortunately, Xavier rescued her but knocked her unconscious in the process. When she woke up, she was still in the medical room. She hadn't dodged because she thought the manner of death was quite novel. As for Xavier's rescue, she didn't express gratitude. On the contrary, she believed he was trying to earn her appreciation. In fact, the two had a connection since childhood. Xavier's godmother was a friend of Wednesday's grandmother. At his godmother's funeral, Xavier hid in her coffin for fun. When the coffin was about to be sent to the crematorium, he got trapped inside. Just as he was about to be burned, Wednesday heard his cries. Thinking that his godmother had come back to life, she pressed the red stop button, saving Xavier's life. Now they were even. Upon returning to her room, she noticed something amiss. Lifting the covers, she found the spying hand. Wednesday's keen sense of smell had exposed the hand's presence thanks to the scent of the hand cream it wore. She knew well that the creepy hand had been sent by her parents to spy on her. Now it had two options: either spend the entire term in the closet or swear eternal loyalty to her. The hand, left with no choice, chose the latter. Soon after, under the guidance of Principal Weems, she visited the town's psychologist. The personal escort was due to the fear that Wednesday might take a chance to escape. The therapy session didn't go well. The psychologist attempted to bridge the gap between them by discussing life philosophy. But Wednesday saw it as a complete waste of time. Her philosophy was simple: kill or be killed. Therefore, she saw no problem with her actions. The psychologist, aware that she had recently taken up writing and had already penned 3 detective novels about young girls, tried to engage her interest. However, Wednesday told her that after reading her works, the editor thought they indicated some form of pathology and suggested Wednesday take some psychological treatment. So Wednesday offered the editor a thank you gift as a punishment. Wednesday seized the opportunity to go to the restroom and with the help of the creepy hand began to implement her escape plan. She slipped out of the window and slid down the drain pipe. Principal Weems, at the time on a call, didn't notice her. In her hurried exit, she accidentally bumped into a fruit vendor, plunging her into a hallucination. The truck had an accident on the road, and the driver lay unconscious in the seat with his neck snapped. But Wednesday didn't care about the sudden vision. Seeing that the principal who accompanied her had no reaction, she quickly made her exit. She intended to buy a few cups of espresso, but Tyler's coffee machine was broken, so Wednesday volunteered to fix it in exchange for him calling her a cab. Tyler suggested she rent a shared bike because there were no taxis in town. But Wednesday always refused to be enslaved by technology, so she didn't have a mobile phone. Fixing the coffee machine was a piece of cake for her. This unique girl aroused Tyler's interest, so he agreed to drop her at the train station, but not until after he finished work. Wednesday pulled out $20 and demanded they leave immediately. Tyler didn't bite, so she upped it to $40. Tyler gave a smile that suggested he wasn't interested in the money. It wasn't about the money. Either he would take her after work or she could find someone else. Wednesday, out of options, gave up. She just wanted to be a quiet, good girl, but the town's thugs decided to pick a fight with her. It was clear from a glance that the eccentric girl in front of them was from Nevermore Academy, which wasn't welcomed here. Wednesday was merely curious why they were dressed like religious fanatics. The group proudly revealed that they were working for Pilgrim's World. Wednesday mockingly said dedicating an entire theme park to a fanatic guilty of genocide was a new level of stupidity. This led to a brawl in the coffee shop, but Wednesday wasn't a weak little girl. She knocked all 3 chicken boys to the ground in minutes. This also alerted the local sheriff. The sheriff turned out to be Tyler's father. After understanding the situation, he was greatly surprised. This young girl had taken down 3 chicken boys single-handedly, turning them into fried chickens. Principal Weems also heard the commotion and rushed over. Only then did the sheriff learn that Wednesday was from the Addams family. In his eyes, Wednesday's father was a murderer who should be locked up in prison. It seemed the apple didn't fall far from the tree. From then on, Wednesday became a thorn in the sheriff's side. The principal quickly whisked her away, and on their way back, they witnessed a car accident. In fact, this accident had appeared in Wednesday's initial vision. The driver's neck was broken on the spot, just as she had described. Evidently, her abilities allowed her to not only see the past, but also predict the future. However, she didn't find joy in this. She was feeling that something was off about this place and didn't know how to control her power. When she was frustrated, she would play the cello on the balcony, but it didn't help. The full moon was out today, and all the werewolves in the school were transforming and howling, all except her roommate Enid, who showed no reaction. She hadn't matured yet and was limited to just showing her dirty claws. This was a serious matter for her. Wolves are social animals, and if she couldn't complete her evolution, she would be cast out of the pack, unable to find a mate, and end up a homeless wolf. Wednesday thought there was nothing wrong with growing old alone. Why bother finding a partner and creating unnecessary trouble? But her view of life was hard for Enid to understand. She asked Wednesday if she had really never been sad before. Well, there was one time. When Wednesday was 6, she took her pet for a walk. Others walked dogs, but she walked a giant scorpion. Other children would think, what kind of weirdo has a scorpion as a pet? So 2 little guys not only rushed at her and held her down, but also made her watch as they crushed the scorpion. It was a snowy day when she buried her pet, and Wednesday cried her heart out. This incident taught her that tears did not solve anything, so she vowed never to cry again. Enid promised to keep her secret. In return, Wednesday decided to let her move back into the single room and began to implement her escape plan. Late at night, the battered spying hand lurked outside the window, causing Tyler to nearly lose his soul in fright and pick up a baseball bat to chase and hit it. Since he didn't know where the hand came from, Tyler ultimately had to submit. In reality, it didn't mean any harm. It was just there to deliver a message, to make a phone call for its master, Wednesday. She wanted to escape from Nevermore Academy and sought Tyler's help. Not wanting to be enslaved by technology, she also started using a computer. Tyler knew that Nevermore Academy was the source of all strange things, but this hand was too exaggerated. Wednesday didn't want to explain too much. It just so happened that this weekend was the Harvest Festival, and all students would participate. He could take this opportunity to drive her to the train station. Wednesday promised it would definitely be worth his while, but Tyler didn't want a reward. He hoped to escape with her. He had long been sick of this place. So, the two struck a deal. The weekend arrived swiftly. Based on the experience at the coffee shop last time, Principal Weems had already anticipated that Wednesday would seize the opportunity to escape and had been covertly keeping a peeping eye on her. When they met, they unexpectedly ran into the school idol, Xavier. There seemed to be a whiff of jealousy coming from him. Tyler had been grounded by his father, so they didn't have much time. They agreed to meet at the back of the car park when the fireworks started. As for Principal Weems, Wednesday had won a large stuffed animal when playing darts and had bribed the boss to give it to the principal, diverting her attention. This allowed Wednesday to slip away and successfully meet up with Tyler. He brought a gift, an investigation file on a murder case involving Wednesday's father, which he had stolen from his sheriff father. Wednesday gratefully accepted. Just as they were about to leave, the three chicken boys from the other day blocked their path. Tyler grabbed Wednesday and ran, but accidentally bumped into Rowan, who was rushing over. Tyler managed to catch him. Suddenly, Wednesday entered into another vision. There was a book about a secret society, and then Rowan was covered in blood and howling in pain. She knew something was about to happen to Rowan, so she quickly chased after him, leaving Tyler behind. Xavier, who was standing nearby, witnessed everything. Without time for an explanation, Wednesday warned Rowan that he was in imminent danger, but he didn't appreciate the warning. Using his control ability, he pinned Wednesday's heavy body against a tree and claimed he was going to eliminate the threat she posed. Actually, the statue incident that day was also his doing. He then pulled out a drawing from his pocket, and the girl in the drawing was Wednesday. It turned out the drawing was made by Rowan's mother 25 years ago. His mother was a powerful seer, and before she died, she instructed Rowan to prevent this girl from coming to the school at all costs, saying that the girl would destroy the entire academy. Just as he was about to strike Wednesday, a monster rushed over and pinned Rowan to the ground. Wednesday managed to escape and witnessed Rowan's death process, which was exactly the same as what happened in her vision. After the monster had its way, it even turned back to look at Wednesday, as if telling her the real drama was yet to come. The drawing slowly drifted onto Rowan's chest. Wednesday took it back to the dormitory and placed it next to her father's case files for further study. At this time, her parents asked about her situation through the crystal ball. Wednesday thought carefully. Her father was involved in a murder case at the academy, and there was a prophecy saying she would destroy the academy. She had almost died twice and was saved by a mysterious monster. A series of events aroused her interest in this place. She decided to stay and uncover these mysteries. Wednesday reported the incident to the town's sheriff. He led a team to search the area overnight, but found no trace of the creature, not even the boy's body. There were no footprints, bloodstains, or signs of struggle. Given the previous murder cases, the sheriff had reason to suspect that this was the work of the academy's oddballs. Principal Weems claimed that the academy only accepted and taught well-behaved outcasts. She said everything would be clear once they found Rowan. Wednesday, however, suspected things weren't that simple and wanted to talk to the sheriff privately. She suspected someone wanted to cover up Rowan's murder, the only reason to clean up a crime scene. In fact, the sheriff was also aware that there was a monster around. But then, Rowan miraculously appeared unscathed before them. Wednesday was taken aback, but she had no doubt about what she had witnessed. The psychologist, however, thought she was seeking attention through false reporting. She didn't care to explain anything. After leaving, she ran into Tyler, who was there to see the psychologist too. Despite the horrifying murder the night before, he expressed his willingness to believe everything Wednesday had described. Later, Wednesday asked her roommate Enid about Rowan's background. She only knew that Rowan was a loner, but Xavier was his roommate and should know more. Clueless, Wednesday could only look for hints in the portrait and found a symbol in the top right corner. She wanted to talk to Rowan directly, but he had been expelled. The principal didn't explain the reason. She just said that Rowan would be leaving on the first train in the afternoon. She also asked Wednesday what she was doing with him in the woods, as she suspected that Wednesday must have seen some paranormal visions. Wednesday was surprised. How did Principal Weems know her secret? In fact, when Wednesday determined that the driver in the car accident had a broken neck, the principal realized she might have had visions, because Wednesday's mother had awakened this ability at her age. She said those visions were unreliable and dangerous. Clearly, Wednesday was the one withholding information. The principal didn't make it hard for her, just suggested she join a club. She must choose one today, and there was no room for negotiation. Clearly, she wanted to keep an eye on her. Since Wednesday could play the cello, she suggested she join the opera club. Bianca, the president of the opera club, had a history with Wednesday, so she asked her if she was a mezzo-soprano, soprano, or a mad woman. Wednesday didn't waste words. She just opened her smelly mouth, but no sound came out. The glasses of the piano guy were shattered, and even the decorative glass far away cracked. Wednesday said it was a pitch only dogs could hear and left without looking back. Later, she found Xavier practicing archery and asked about his roommate, Rowan. He said Rowan was never normal and had been weird in the past few weeks, seemingly disrupted by his psychic sensing ability. He warned Wednesday to stay away from Tyler because Tyler and his friends were jerks and all had hostility towards the academy. However, Wednesday didn't take his words to heart. After saying goodbye to Xavier, she visited the Wasp Club and met the president, Eugene. He was about to introduce her to the club when the spying hand suddenly appeared. It said that Rowan was about to leave. Wednesday rushed over to ask him about the happenings. Rowan surprisingly said he had just gone to the woods to clear his mind that night. At this point, Marilyn reminded her that she shouldn't be here. Left with no choice, Wednesday had to let the spying hand follow Rowan. The unmanned hand was zipping about the train station, tracking Rowan. Strangely, Rowan came out of the bathroom a different person. Even though he had crossed paths with the spying hand at the entrance, it had not realized the change. After searching the bathroom and finding the man gone, it emerged to find him disappeared into the crowd. The man headed towards the underground passage and then transformed into Principal Weems. Why would she want to create the illusion that Rowan was still alive? The hand reported the loss of its target to its master, Wednesday. The only lead was now completely cut off, and they had to come up with another plan. Wednesday intended to return to the crime scene, but Principal Weems was watching her like a hawk. In desperation, Wednesday asked her roommate Enid to use the Wasp Club to create a diversion. Eugene was overjoyed because he had long harbored hormone feelings for Enid. Just as Wednesday stepped into the forest to investigate, she was abruptly caught by Tyler. It seemed the sheriff wanted to have a look too, which caught Wednesday by surprise. Tyler had managed to evade the tracking dogs with the coffee grounds in his hand. He was also curious about what happened that night. In appreciation for helping her dodge the sheriff, Wednesday told him that Rowan had planned to strangle her, but a monster sprang out and tore Rowan to shreds halfway through. Notably, Wednesday concealed the reason why Rowan wanted to kill her. Just then, she found Rowan's glasses. As she was about to pick them up, she entered a vision. She saw Rowan arguing with Xavier while controlling a statue to smash her. He had gotten a book from a secret place, and the picture predicting that Wednesday would destroy the academy was torn from this book. The book's cover clearly read Nightshade Society. So she went to the library to find this book. The dorm supervisor Marilyn suddenly approached her and asked if she needed help. Wednesday showed her the pattern drawn on paper. Marilyn said it was the logo of an old student club called the Nightshade Society, but it had been dissolved years ago for unknown reasons. After fruitless searching in the library, Wednesday sneakily went to Rowan's dorm to find that book. She unexpectedly found many drawings in Xavier's notebook, including a sketch of her. Then she found a secret compartment under Rowan's bed hiding a mask. This guy was indeed a member of the Nightshade Society. Just then, a knock was heard from the door. She quickly hid under the bed. It was Bianca. She had come to speak with her ex-boyfriend Xavier to clear up why he was always so interested in Wednesday and why he broke up with her, but Xavier did not answer. Bianca could only leave a stern warning, vowing to trample Wednesday underfoot. Meanwhile, Enid was lying on her bed, wailing in distress. Wednesday had just returned to the dorm, looking utterly perplexed. There was a rowing competition at the school the next day, but her teammate had unexpectedly flaked out at the most crucial time. Without one person, they would have to forfeit. Wednesday knew well that Bianca was behind this. No matter, she decided to team up with her roommate to take Bianca down completely. Although Enid was deeply moved, defeating Bianca was no easy task. The competition was to be held on the water, and there were no rules to abide by. As a mermaid, Bianca had a natural advantage. Yet Wednesday exuded confidence, deciding to fight fire with fire. The actual event was a rowing competition held by the academy with no rules attached. The objective was to row to a small island on the opposite side, retrieve the team flag, and the first one to deliver it to the finish line would be declared the champion. Upon the command of Principal Weems, the 4 participating teams set off almost simultaneously. Due to the lack of rules, Bianca had already arranged for a person to sneak underwater and play dirty tricks on others midway. Other teams also had secret weapons, with some even installing large guillotines on their flanks. Fortunately, Wednesday's team was prepared, and they narrowly escaped disaster. At this point, the team had already swum halfway. The mermaid arranged by Bianca extended her dark hand towards one lucky individual. Due to the violent attack, they couldn't control their direction at all, heading straight into an obstacle and getting eliminated on the spot. Knowing well about Bianca's secret weapon, Wednesday saw herself becoming the next target. She immediately instructed the spying hand to flick the switch. A fishing net directly flew towards the mermaid in the water, ensnaring her to the spot. The remaining 3 teams finally made it to the small island. Wednesday asked the others to stay put to prevent Bianca from causing damage. She could handle the task of capturing the flag alone. The spying hand wasn't idle either. It used a diversionary tactic to lead 2 clowns from the neighboring team away. This gave Enid the opportunity to show her claws and tear a big hole in their Tesla boat. Simultaneously, Wednesday successfully arrived at a place called Crackstone and got the flag. Her amazing prophetic ability exploded once again and even leveled up. She was not only in the scene, but also met a girl who looked like her. The white-haired girl told her that she was the key, but when she woke up again, Bianca had already got the flag. Wednesday noted the castle behind her and rushed back. However, the other 2 boats had already left them behind. At this moment, the clown's boat was leaking water. That was Enid's handiwork. The team was stuck in place, and they easily passed them. Now only Bianca remained. Wednesday had a backup plan. She flicked the switch to reveal the spikes on her boat, prepared to sink Bianca's boat in one go. But the mermaid underwater managed to break free and push them aside. At the critical moment, the spying hand jumped into the water, traced the mermaid's sexy body, and knocked her out without hormone mercy, causing her to sink to the bottom. Then Wednesday's team approached the opponent again and completely shattered their Tesla boat. Bianca could only watch them reach the finish line with a sigh. Amidst the cheers, Wednesday and her team won the championship, and the spying hand successfully returned to land. At the award ceremony, Wednesday wasn't accustomed to being in the spotlight, so she left early. She went to rest under a statue for a while and accidentally found the symbol of the Nightshade Society she had been looking for. She wanted to investigate, but Enid interrupted her. Because there were too many people, it wasn't convenient to delve into it at the moment. After night fell, she returned there again, then looked at the content of the book according to the symbol. It was all riddles, but for Wednesday, this was not a difficult task at all. She circled the first letters of these words and solved the final riddle. With 2 snaps of her fingers, Wednesday wore a knowing smile. Lastly, she snapped her fingers at the statue, successfully unlocking the secret passage. She entered through the tunnel, leading her to what seemed like a hidden library. The walls were filled with portraits, including those of her parents. The book that Rowan had torn was hidden here. There was another half to that painting. She packed the book into her bag and prepared to leave. Yet, as it often goes, the closer you get to the truth, the more likely someone is to stab you in the back. It turned out, Wednesday was tied up and kidnapped by an organization named the Nightshade Society. They were so secretive, but Wednesday had already seen through them. One by one, they removed their masks to reveal their ugly faces. To her surprise, the society included Bianca and Xavier. According to her knowledge, the Nightshade Society had disbanded 30 years ago after a student had died accidentally. However, it still had many members, hence they went underground. As long as no one caused trouble, Principal Weems would turn a blind eye. Xavier proposed to invite Wednesday to join them, like taking up her parents' mantle. Old rival Bianca was the first to oppose, believing that the girl was trouble and no one would bear the brunt of the problems she caused. But Wednesday had no interest in joining such a group. It felt like a bunch of kids playing hide and seek. They couldn't even kidnap properly. Wednesday broke free, and on her way out, she mocked them by saying that their amateurish actions were a disgrace to kidnapping. Back in her dorm, she quickly began researching the book she had just obtained. She still didn't know how Rowan mysteriously resurrected, or why the monster kept wandering in the forest. But right now, nothing interested her more than this book. Rowan called it the Apocalypse, but why was there another pilgrim in the painting alongside her? Wednesday was bewildered. This was the annual outreach day at school. What was different this time was that the town of Jericho was holding a ceremony for a new statue in the square. The students were not only volunteering, but also representing Nevermore Academy in a performance. Roommate Enid was assigned to work at the Pilgrim World, while Wednesday was placed at an eerie antique shop. Based on her previous cello experience, the principal arranged for Wednesday to accompany the orchestra during the ceremony. Upon arriving at the town, she asked Xavier about the painting's origin. He was not surprised because Rowan had also spent some time in the Nightshade Society before being kicked out. He had once spread out the painting on a table, so Xavier accidentally saw it. He thought that Rowan had stolen it and wanted to confront him, but Rowan was furious. The scene Wednesday saw in her vision was actually their argument. Wednesday told Xavier that she saw him being psychically thrown against the wall by Rowan. When Xavier asked how she knew, Wednesday replied she guessed so. The book was already 30 years old, and Xavier was puzzled as to why the pilgrim appeared in the painting with Wednesday. He shared to her that the Jericho town was founded by Crackstone, who was also a pilgrim and had a connection with the pilgrim world. Knowing that, Wednesday immediately swapped tasks with Enid. Hearing that her secret crush Ajax was volunteering there too, Enid agreed without a second thought. Thus, Wednesday smoothly entered the pilgrim world. The lady in charge briefly introduced the assembly hall behind her, which contained some objects related to Crackstone. Upon hearing that it was related to the founder, Wednesday immediately requested to work there. But the exhibition hall was under renovation, and everyone was assigned to work in the core area that day. As such, a group of students were arranged in the shop to recommend soft candies to customers. Eugene, however, snuck some candies halfway and was caught red-handed by the high school students in town, who decided to punish him. Without a moment's hesitation, Wednesday stepped in. In a few swift moves, she subdued the ringleader using her skinny muscles and rescued the shitty Eugene. Meanwhile, the mayor found Principal Weems in the coffee shop and expressed his gratitude for her generous donation to his re-election campaign. She smiled and thought of it as a token of gratitude for their ongoing collaboration. The secrets between these two surfaced. Eugene, like Wednesday, had no friends and was marginalized, but their personalities were vastly different. Eugene's timidity reminded her of her younger brother. Anyway, she had to infiltrate the assembly hall to understand more deeply. Wednesday pried open the door. Eugene was on the lookout while she went in to search for clues. Guided by the spying hand, she discovered a painting from 1625, surprisingly featuring the white-haired girl she had seen in her visions, holding the same black book. Coincidentally, this book was placed on the counter next to her. Wednesday eagerly opened this book, but it turned out to be a fake. Just then, the lady in charge showed up, dragging Eugene along. Wednesday was not at all flustered, arguing that she didn't steal anything and this display case was already open. The lady stated that it was a replica and the original had been stolen during the witch trial last month. As a result of Wednesday breaking the club's rules, she was expelled, so she went to the coffee shop to seek Tyler's help. Xavier warned her again, saying that Tyler was not a good person. But Wednesday remained indifferent, only wanting to find the old assembly place as soon as possible. Tyler said that its ruins were deep in the forest, now a ruin, a haven for homeless people and addicts. Tyler, worried that the place would be hard to find, offered to take her there after work. But if she missed the statue unveiling ceremony, Principal Weems would be furious. In the end, Wednesday went alone. As soon as she entered, she encountered a homeless old man, but she wasn't flustered because she had a helper. Under the intimidation of the spying hand, the homeless man was scared away to find a free home in hell. Wednesday came here to look for clues from 400 years ago, but she found nothing. The hand reminded her to touch things here, to see if she could trigger her psychic ability to enter visions. However, after touching around the cabin, nothing happened. Just as she was preparing to leave, the vision was suddenly triggered. She seemed to have entered another world and immediately hid in the dark to observe. She saw the white-haired girl who looked like her, surrounded by villagers and pilgrims who kept calling her the reincarnation of the devil. The pilgrim leader was the town's founder, Crackstone. The girl's name was Goody Addams, and today she must face judgment before God for being a witch. In Goody's view, it was Crackstone who should be punished. Before he came, the outcasts and residents here lived in harmony, but everything changed after he arrived. He not only took the land of her people, but also killed innocent people, completely abandoning the original intention of peace. Goody slashed at Crackstone, and the cheek-scratched Crackstone became furious, locking her in the cabin filled with her kind and tribespeople. Crackstone vowed that he would eradicate every outcast in the world. After saying this, he ordered all the people of her tribe in the room to be burned to death. In the chaos, Goody found her mother, but she was locked on the ground and couldn't escape. She could only urge her daughter to run, to find the others of their tribe, and to save everyone from the pain of being looked at differently and discriminately. The helpless Goody could only obey her mother's last words and escaped through a secret passage. In the thick smoke, she encountered Wednesday, who had entered the vision. Suddenly, Crackstone appeared in front of them. Wednesday was startled back to reality. She was sure that Goody was her ancestor from 400 years ago. At this point, a strange noise came from outside. She went out to check and found the mysterious creature she had been looking for. She was startled, but the creature didn't harm her and ran away. Wednesday hurriedly chased after it. Strangely enough, the footprints on the ground turned from monster to human. This surprised her even more. Just then, Xavier appeared. He had heard that Wednesday wanted to investigate the old assembly hall and was worried that something might happen, so he came to find her. Wednesday told him about her deduction that the creature was human, but the rain washed away all the evidence. Although Xavier was skeptical, he began to believe Wednesday's claim that Rowan had died, because he had asked Rowan to go skiing with him today like they did last year, but Rowan replied that he couldn't go. In reality, they didn't go at all last year. It's clear that someone else was responding to Rowan's messages. Then Wednesday told him everything she had just seen in the illusion. However, Xavier didn't believe what happened in the illusion. She always inferred that Rowan was right. A misfortune was on the horizon, and she had to stop it. This all started with that monster. Wednesday thought nothing could scare her until she saw Crackstone's eyes. She didn't believe in heaven or hell, only in revenge, and she was the type to act immediately. After a brief speech, the mayor pressed the switch, signaling the beginning of the statue unveiling ceremony. The spying hand also started to move. It lit a match near the bronze statue and threw it at the prepared fuse. The end of the fuse was connected to the bronze statue. When the two met, they caused a massive explosion. The intense fire engulfed the bronze statue. Everyone scattered and ran except for Wednesday, who stood calmly by the fire playing her cello. Her heart was extremely jubilant. The music continued until the bronze statue melted. Principal Weems was so angry her face turned pale, and the mayor was furious. She was sure it was Wednesday causing the trouble, but she denied it. In reality, it was the spying hand who poured gasoline into the pool, so they couldn't blame Wednesday. Wednesday turned the conversation towards racial discrimination. Humans have regarded the outcast groups as lower citizens for centuries, or even worse. With Weems' experience, she certainly knew these truths. So why did she hide the truth? That's their difference. What Wednesday saw was destruction, whereas Weems saw a peaceful coexistence between normal people and the outcasts. But to Wednesday, harmony was just a facade. Humans still hated the outcasts. They were just disguising everything with smiles. Principal Weems also wanted to reveal the truth, but the world isn't just black and white. There are always some gray areas. Since she didn't want to do it, she let Wednesday do it. Weems stated she would keep an eye on her. Meanwhile, a vagrant was brutally murdered at the old assembly hall. Today was the day Enid had a date with Ajax, who belonged to the Stones. Ajax joyfully took a bath to clean his dirty body, but the towel covering the mirror fell off. When he came out, he saw his own eyes and was accidentally petrified on the spot. So, this is what a stone man is. Thus, he missed his date with Enid, who was so angry she could explode. Wondering if he didn't want to date her, then why make the arrangement? Later, the dorm supervisor Marilyn snapped her fingers and entered the Nightshade Society's base. It seems her identity isn't that simple. Wednesday believes one coincidence is a coincidence, 2 coincidences are clues, and 3 coincidences are evidence. The painting Rowan made of her and Crackstone together was about the future. Goody's warning to Crackstone happened in the past, and now the appearance of the current monster. She knows these 3 coincidences are connected. The sheriff believes the monster is hiding in the school. Actually, monsters are everywhere. Sometimes the least suspected is the most dangerous. They don't need to scare with fangs and claws, they just hide in the dark until no one pays attention and then suddenly attack. Wednesday swears to find out the truth. The police cordoned off the crime scene and found a camera left at the scene. The sheriff developed the photos. The true face of the monster gradually emerged. As for who it really is, no one knows yet. That night, the spying hand snuck into the morgue, blocked the camera, and opened the main door to cover for Wednesday, who came in to investigate the vagrant's cause of death. They decided to split up for the task, with the creepy hand photocopying the files of the monster and the victim, while Wednesday would conduct the autopsy. The vagrant's hands had both tear wounds and defensive injuries. His chest and torso were severely damaged. He was practically disemboweled, indicating he had suffered a violent attack before his death. Strangely, the victim's left foot was missing, as though it had been forcibly bitten off. Just as she wanted to investigate further, the hand spotted something amiss. It rushed to notify her that someone was coming their way. Wednesday had to stop her inspection and hide her heavy body up. The person who arrived was the sheriff, coming to understand the situation. The coroner stated that in all his years of medical practice, he had never seen such wounds. The killer had cut off 2 toes from the victim's left foot as if done with a surgical saw. But he didn't know why the killer took away the useless toes or if the killer had a fetish for toe collection. The sheriff was clueless and could only wait for the autopsy results for further analysis. After he left, the coroner noticed an unsecured body drawer. He pulled open the drawer, not remembering receiving this body. He touched Wednesday's body and found it completely rigid. Deciding to deal with it the next day, he closed the drawer. Thankfully, it was just a false alarm. Wednesday returned to the dorm with the documents the hand copied and began her detailed study. Soon, she made a significant discovery. The monster had amputated a specific body part from each victim as if collecting trophies. It was like a seasoned serial killer. Her roommate Enid, scared by this, fainted on the spot. Afterwards, Wednesday went to her botany class and noticed something was off about Xavier. He explained that he had twisted his back during fencing. Wednesday believed him for now, but how would he explain the wound on his neck? She couldn't help but be suspicious and followed Xavier to his private painting studio in the woods. She was shocked on the spot. The place was filled with pictures of monsters, all in different forms. Wednesday secretly took a few pictures for further study, but she ran into Xavier just as she was leaving. She didn't explain much, only saying that she wanted to discuss homework with Xavier, but the teacher hadn't assigned any homework. Xavier then challenged him if he was trying to invite her to the dance. Sometimes, hormone opportunities come unexpectedly to those lonely guys. Wednesday nervously extended the invitation, and Xavier agreed readily. When Enid found out, she was so excited. She was insistent on taking Wednesday shopping for a dress. As they passed an antique shop, a long dress in the window caught Wednesday's eye. Its style was a perfect match for her. The passing psychologist noticed her preference, but Wednesday ignored her and rushed to give the picture to the sheriff. She was candid, stating that they both knew there was a monster outside. If they wanted to stop it, they had to put aside their differences and work together. Wednesday knew the author of the painting and suspected the author was the actual murderer. As for who it was, she would never tell unless they exchanged information. The sheriff was initially reluctant to work with her, but the mayor was pressing him, so he had no choice but to temporarily make peace with Wednesday. The more leads they had, the more channels they had to investigate the case. Meanwhile, the mayor's son approached Enid, hearing that she was looking for a dance partner. They could perhaps help each other out and use this opportunity to make their exes jealous. Enid gladly agreed. On her way, Wednesday ran into Tyler. They started chatting about the dance. She mentioned that she had already invited Xavier to be her dance partner. Tyler, surprisingly, showed signs of hormone jealousy. But Wednesday was focused on the investigation, and she had no interest in romance, which led to a disagreement. To take care of Enid's feelings, Wednesday had to bring the drawings to the Wasp Society for research. Eugene was willing to share. Speaking of the circle on the picture, he used to go up the mountain to collect specimens frequently, so he seemed to have seen that place. Following the drawings, the two found the cave smoothly. They bravely went in and saw it was full of animal bones. A pair of handcuffs was embedded in the wall with many scratch marks around it. This was clearly the monster's lair. Fortunately, they found evidence. They just needed to take the claw back and compare it to Xavier's sample to prove Xavier was the monster. So Wednesday returned to the private painting studio and found a piece of gauze with blood in the trash bin. Just as she was about to leave, Xavier came back. As a result, Wednesday turned the tables, questioning him about the paintings and how he knew the monster's appearance. Furthermore, he was present when Rowan was killed. Since the secret was discovered, Xavier had to admit that this monster had been troubling him in his dreams for weeks. He tried not to think about it, but it was hard, so he drew it. Yesterday, he couldn't control himself while painting and scratched himself. That's why there were marks on his neck. His explanations were plausible, but how could the monster's lair appear in his dream? Xavier realized that Wednesday had reluctantly invited him to be her dance partner only to cover her tracks. He was very angry and drove Wednesday out. Afterward, Wednesday handed 2 pieces of crucial evidence to the sheriff: the monster's claw and a blood sample from the suspect. They needed to conduct a DNA test to see if they matched. As for who the suspect was, she would explain everything when the test results came out. Because the dance was ruined, Wednesday had to ask Eugene to monitor the cave to confirm the monster's identity. At the same time, Xavier accepted Bianca's dance invitation. The spying hand, very considerate, saw its master lost her dance partner and handed the invitation to Tyler without Wednesday knowing about it. But she had a date with Eugene tonight to monitor the cave. When she was about to leave with everything ready, she was caught off guard by Tyler. The hand was scared and hid right away, afraid that Wednesday would kill it. Since Tyler was already dressed up, Wednesday couldn't refuse and had to go back and change her clothes. But she couldn't find a suitable evening dress after after a long search. The hand then pointed at the bed. It had prepared everything for its master. Laid on the bed was the dress Wednesday had eyed in the antique shop. But how did the creepy hand pay for it? The only explanation Wednesday could think of was a handy shoplifting. Surprisingly, the dress felt stunning when she put it on. At this time, Eugene, who was fully prepared, came over to find Wednesday, believing that they were supposed to monitor the cave. But he instantly understood the situation and wanted to investigate the forest alone. Wednesday advised him not to act alone because it was too dangerous and suggested delaying it until tomorrow night. Eugene agreed to her face, but secretly swore that the Wasp Society would never shy away from danger. The dance was about to start swiftly. When Xavier saw that Wednesday's dance partner was Tyler, he was livid. He confronted her alone, revealing how Tyler had vandalized his mural during the outreach day last year. He even claimed that after being sent to a new recruit training camp, he discovered that wasn't what he wanted to become, so he vented his anger on Xavier. He insisted he wasn't an utterly reprehensible person. Shockingly, Wednesday stated she wouldn't judge someone based on a single prank. If she were the victim, she would have responded even more harshly. Later, Wednesday showcased her dancing skills on the dance floor. Despite the joyous atmosphere, the mayor's son's two friends were planning mischief outside. They knew the fountain explosion event that day was the work of people from the academy, so they wanted to take this opportunity for revenge. Meanwhile, Eugene arrived alone outside the cave to keep watch. Initially, everything was normal. However, before long, a car slowly stopped at the mouth of the cave, and a person got out, then set the cave on fire, seemingly trying to destroy evidence. As he was leaving, he spotted Eugene. Accompanied by a thunderous explosion, both of them fled the scene simultaneously. Then, the mayor's son's friend flipped a switch, and the fire hose started spewing red liquid. The entire dance floor was instantly dyed red. The frightened crowd hurriedly fled the scene. Only Wednesday, unruffled, tasted the liquid and discovered it was just paint for a prank. A passerby bumped into her at this time, triggering her precognition ability. In the vision, she saw that Eugene was about to be in danger and rushed to rescue him. Enid ran out looking disheveled and discovered that all this was the mayor's son's doing behind the scenes. Luckily, Ajax arrived in time, and the misunderstanding about them standing each other up was clarified. Elsewhere in the forest, Eugene thought he had escaped danger, unaware that the monster was right behind him, tracing his bad smell. At that moment, Wednesday also arrived and shouted Eugene's name. Due to tension and exhaustion, Eugene stumbled and fell. Hearing Wednesday's shout, he responded with his location. But when he turned around, the monster was already behind him. When Wednesday arrived, Eugene was already lying on the ground, barely alive. Surprisingly, the first to arrive was the dorm supervisor, Marilyn. The case was becoming increasingly complicated. The scene shifts to the Nevermore Academy hosting its annual Parents' Day. This reminded Wednesday of her father's case. In her memory, her father was someone who was not good at strategy and expressed love in an exaggerated way. It was hard to imagine that her father was involved in a murder case when he was young. She wanted to figure out what exactly happened on the stormy night 32 years ago. Records show that when Principal Weems was returning to her dormitory, a man fell from the building. Looking up, she saw Wednesday's father standing on the rooftop with a sword. Weems thought the two men must have had a dispute, as both were pursuing Wednesday's young mother. As a result, Wednesday's father was arrested on the spot, but was released without charge not long after. Wednesday didn't know the hidden story, but was determined to find it out during Parents' Day. Principal Weems also took the opportunity to announce that Eugene's condition was improving, hoping to dispel the parents' doubts. Although the students of the academy had different abilities, their attitudes towards their parents were very similar. Xavier's father hadn't even come to visit him for a time. Bianca had it even worse. Since she came to the academy, her mother hadn't shown up. But surprisingly, she came today. Strangely, Bianca didn't seem surprised, but showed a face of fear. Principal Weems had a private conversation with the Addams family. Given the recent events, she believed the academy could no longer accommodate Wednesday. The psychological therapy was also very poor. The psychologist had always wanted to talk to Wednesday's family. For the sake of their daughter's growth, the Addams decided to go. Unfortunately, they were seen by the sheriff, who was drinking coffee at the time. He was very upset because Wednesday's father was a murderer, yet he could live freely in the town. Then, his colleague called him. The coroner had ended his own life in the morgue. At the psychological therapy, the Addams couple showed their affections in front of everyone. Unable to bear it, Wednesday took out the file and asked her father to explain the case of that year. Her mother was upset. She refused to discuss the persecution case with her daughter, and the conversation had to be terminated. Since her parents didn't want to talk about it, Wednesday decided to investigate it herself. After leaving, she had a big fight with her mother. On the other side, Bianca started arguing with her mother. Bianca's mother had married a cult leader and was using the hypnosis ability of the sea monster to expand her membership and amass wealth. But her mother's mermaid power was drying up, and some people who knew too much were becoming uncontrollable. So she hoped that her daughter would come back to help her. But Bianca didn't want to be involved in such things, thinking that mermaid power should be used for good. Her mother found this very funny, believing that Bianca was also admitted to the academy with the help of the mermaid power. She only gave Bianca a week to say goodbye to the academy. Otherwise, she would personally expose her daughter's lies. Later, Wednesday went to visit the sleeping Eugene. She felt somewhat responsible for Eugene's condition, but self-blame aside, the only way to help Eugene get revenge was to find the mastermind. At the morgue, it was determined that the coroner had shot himself. But suspiciously, the sheriff had just seen the coroner last week. The coroner was planning to go on a cruise with his wife and seemed to be looking forward to retirement. So he didn't seem like someone who would kill himself. They wanted to retrieve the surveillance video, but the camera was stuck with a bubblegum. In addition, the coroner mentioned in his suicide note that he felt guilty about an old case for years. He claimed that he had covered up the truth and forged the autopsy report, and this was the case related to Wednesday's father. The sheriff was secretly pleased by that, because he had always wanted to bring Wednesday's father to justice. Now that new evidence had appeared, he could finally settle this long-standing issue. Meanwhile, Wednesday arrived at the plaza to observe the founder statue of Crackstone. Unexpectedly, she saw her mother carrying a bouquet of flowers, headed towards the cemetery. She decided to follow her quietly. After her mother had left, she looked closer and recognized the man her father had stabbed years ago, a man named Gates. She wondered what her mother was trying to escape from. Mr. Addams believed their daughter should know about this incident, while Mrs. Addams argued she would never believe them. At that moment, the sheriff and his men stormed into the academy, arresting Mr. Addams in front of everyone. Mrs. Addams said nothing, only shedding tears of sorrow. Later, Wednesday visited her father in the prison, hoping to understand the whole story. She saw her mother paying tribute to a man named Gates, and her father was arrested for murdering the man. Mr. Addams had no choice but to reveal the truth of that year. Gates was obsessed with her young mother at that time to the extent of madness, and he began stalking her. They tried to report it to the police, but it was to no avail because of his family's power and influence in Jericho Town, and no one believed Gates would be the stalker. Not only that, Gates's father, a man who hated any deviation from the norm, was irate at the accusations against his son, and so everything came to a head at the party that night. On a stormy night, the young couple was expressing their love in the hall when Gates stormed in with murderous intent. To avoid escalating the situation, Mr. Addams hurriedly fled, but Gates was relentless, grabbing a long sword and chasing after him. They engaged in wrestling their muscles on the rooftop. Driven by jealousy and hatred, Gates was unstoppable and began to lose his sanity. Seeing the sword, Mr. Addams picked it up for self-defense, and a crazed Gates lunged at him, causing an accident. Gates fell into the courtyard, scaring the wits out of a passerby, who was actually Principal Weems. Mr. Addams's account sounded plausible, but Wednesday was not so easily fooled. His beard stroking and eye blinking betrayed him. After all, she had been playing Russian roulette with her father since she was 12, and was well versed in these subtle gestures. However, Wednesday chose to believe him for the time being. After bidding her father goodbye, she found the sheriff and pointed out that there were too many suspicious circumstances and coincidences in this case. The coroner committed suicide out of guilt for a murder case decades ago and left a will accusing her father. And just this weekend, her father happened to return to town. Clearly, someone saw them getting close to the truth about the monster case and deliberately created this incident to obstruct their investigation. She then asked to see the results of the previous genetic test. The sheriff angrily produced the report, which concluded that a match was not possible. Wednesday still believed that all of this was not a coincidence. The person who assassinated the coroner and hurt Eugene was clearly the same person. Unfortunately, someone had stuck chewing gum on the camera, so the sheriff didn't know what happened when the coroner terminated himself. He insisted that the two incidents were unrelated and that it was just justice being served. After Gates's death, his entire family fell into ruin. His mother took her life by hanging herself while his father died from alcoholism. His sister was sent overseas as an orphan and eventually drowned. Wednesday had nothing to say about all of this. She was feeling suppressed and sought out her brother to inquire about their mother's whereabouts. Besides their father, their mother was the only one who knew the truth about the past. The brother said that their mother had gone to a place no one knew about, and Wednesday immediately thought of the Nightshade Society and indeed found her there. As it appeared now, the Nightshade Society was just an ordinary social group, but it used to be much more than that. Its mission was to protect the outcasts from harm and prejudice, founded by Mr. Addams' ancestor from Mexico. The original members were among the earliest immigrants to America. Wednesday immediately thought of their ancestor Goody. Her mother seemed surprised. Indeed, it was Goody who killed Crackstone. The Nightshade Society was Goody's secret weapon to deal with the oppressive Crackstone. Mrs. Addams knew exactly why her daughter had come. She had to reveal that she had been present during the fight, and Gates, with his pupils dilated and frothing at the mouth, had lunged at her like a wild beast. Terrified, she had picked up a sword from the ground and stabbed Gates. To protect his beloved from trial, her father took all the blame, deliberately allowing Weems to see him with the sword. From her mother's account, Wednesday noticed a discrepancy. Gates was frothing at the mouth, and his eyes didn't look human. Mrs. Addams said that she had never seen anyone so blinded by anger, or perhaps it wasn't anger at all. These were typical symptoms, and her mother should have been more aware. Upon hearing this, her mother had an epiphany. To verify their suspicions, the two went to the backyard to dig up the ground, and just as they suspected, Gates had been poisoned. At that moment, the police were called, and the mother-daughter duo was arrested on the spot. Her parents seemed optimistic, believing that the law couldn't separate them. Wednesday remarked that even wolves had more self-control than her parents. She knew her parents couldn't stand imprisonment, so as she left, she took one of Gates's fingers with her. The well-preserved soft tissue and blue gloss proved that Gates was poisoned with anemone. Even if her mother hadn't stabbed him, Gates would have met a grim fate. Just as Wednesday retrieved the finger, she had another vision. Gates's father, cursing and swearing, gave his son a bottle of anemone poison and ordered him to sneak into the dance and assassinate the outcasts. However, during the conflict with Mr. Addams, Gates accidentally shattered the bottle, leading to his own poisoning. He didn't just want to kill her father, but massacre the entire academy. After discovering this crucial clue, the mother-daughter duo went to City Hall. The mayor, who was the sheriff at the time, was in charge of the case. He knew the truth, but chose to cover it up. The mayor expressed his sorrow. The Gates family detested the Nevermore Academy and always claimed that the land on which the academy stood was stolen from them 200 years ago. Gates's father confessed everything to him in a drunken stupor. To preserve the reputation of Jericho and Nevermore, he had no choice but to let the coroner fake the report, letting the matter drop. In Mrs. Addams' view, the mayor was just trying to preserve his own reputation. In fact, while pursuing her, Gates had boasted that his father had bribed the then sheriff, who skyrocketed to fame and was elected as the mayor a year later, hence why the mayor ignored her allegations of Gates stalking her. If the mayor had done his job properly, Gates wouldn't have lost his life. The mayor was a smart man. The mother-daughter duo hadn't publicized the matter, so they must need something from him. They had only one condition: to drop the charges against Mr. Addams and publicly apologize. The mayor had no choice but to release Mr. Addams. The current sheriff shook hands with him, indicating a resolution. After the incident, the mother-daughter relationship seemed to have grown closer. She expressed concern about her daughter's sightings of their ancestor Goody. Goody was a powerful witch with a deep-seated desire for revenge, so they had to be careful not to provoke her. Later, the mayor once again perused the Gates family's files, seemingly pondering something. At the academy, Bianca decided to compromise. She could return to help her mother, but her mother had to wait until the end of the semester. Otherwise, things wouldn't go well for anyone. Reluctantly, her mother agreed. Before they parted, Bianca's mother handed over her old yearbook to her daughter. It contained memories of her wonderful times at the academy. Wednesday took a glance and found an important clue that could confirm Rowan's death. The Rowan who appeared that morning was actually an illusion created by the principal, who had demonstrated this ability during a talent show. Pressed by Wednesday, Weems had no choice but to reveal the truth, saying that her actions had been approved by Rowan's parents, as Rowan had twice tried to kill Wednesday. Therefore, they chose to hide his death to avoid negative impacts on the academy and Rowan's family. Wednesday believed that Principal Weems and the mayor were alike, burying bodies to cover their dirty secrets. But from Weems's perspective, she was just protecting the academy and its students. But speaking of protection, the student Eugene got injured and was still in the hospital. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside. They hurried out to see what was happening and found that someone had set fire to the lawn. The fire spelled out words, seemingly warning them of the upcoming danger. Wednesday performed a ritual in her room, hoping to summon her ancestor Goody, who could teach her how to control her psychic power. After reciting a few spells, the door was suddenly opened and the candles were extinguished. She initially thought the summoning was successful, but it turned out to be her roommate Enid who had returned, leading to a disappointing outcome. At that moment, someone slipped a note under the door, telling her if she wanted answers, meet inside Crackstone's crypt at midnight. They decided to go together to find out more. The door was slightly ajar, indicating that the messenger had arrived. Because the atmosphere was too eerie, Enid was a bit scared and decided to keep watch outside. This was Wednesday's first visit here. In the center, she saw a large stone coffin making strange noises. It turned out that her classmates had come to throw her a surprise birthday party. Wednesday was unfazed and glanced at the spying hand nearby, certain that this was its idea. Then an altar caught her attention. It was inscribed with some warning words, which was exactly what she had seen at the academy the previous night. Wednesday was sure this was no coincidence. She reached out to touch it and was instantly transported back 32 years, where she finally met her ancestor, Goody. Apparently, Goody told her to find this place so as to stop Crackstone's plan. After returning, she sketched the appearance of the door. Considering the prank incident at the last dance, Principal Weems suspected that the fire on the lawn last night was set by the mayor's son. However, this was quickly dismissed. He insisted that they should first find the perpetrator who attacked Eugene last time. Though Xavier's sample did not successfully match the monster's claw, he still remained the prime suspect in the eyes of Wednesday. Helpless, Xavier left after stating that he was always ready to help her. Shortly after, the mayor received a death certificate from London. It was for Laurel, the sister of Gates. With a try-it-out attitude, Wednesday showed the diagram to Tyler, asking if he knew the place. Tyler smiled, saying he had no idea. There were too many such doors in Jericho Town. Helpless, she had to seek Xavier, the prime suspect. Coincidentally, he had just drawn one. He showed that he had started having strange dreams again recently. Although there were no monsters in the dreams, the house appeared almost every time, and he often jogged there. It was the old Gates house. At that moment, the spying hand pulled down the curtain, showing a painting of Wednesday playing the cello. Xavier got awkward by that. Wednesday didn't say a word, but followed the lead provided by him and found the old Gates house. Theoretically, all the Gates family members were dead. She wondered why her ancestor Goody guided her here. There must be some hidden truth. As she was about to enter, she noticed movement inside and quickly hid. To her astonishment, the person who came out of the house was the mayor. He made a phone call to the sheriff telling him that he had figured out who the murderer was. It turns out the mayor had already investigated the murderer behind the Forrest case. Wednesday also took advantage of his distraction to sneak into the trunk and see what truth he was talking about. He arrived at the coffee shop as per the agreement, ready to tell the sheriff the whole truth. However, a car raced over and hit him, throwing him several meters away. The mayor lay unconscious on the ground, seemingly causing the truth to be buried once again. Luckily, he was still breathing. The sheriff was confused about why Wednesday was in the mayor's car. She explained that she saw the mayor coming out of the old Gates mansion, so she followed out of curiosity. Then she saw him being attacked so brutally. It was clear that he really had evidence. All the signs pointed to the Gates family and that old house. Wednesday always appeared at the center of the vortex, which nearly drove Principal Weems to collapse. So she decided to completely seal the academy from now on and forbid Wednesday from leaving school until further notice. The dorm supervisor Marilyn came to comfort her and said that everything the principal did was for her protection. As long as she didn't run around, she wouldn't encounter any accidents. But Wednesday didn't need her help and sympathy at all, because with her mother's and the psychologist's nagging, it was already tormenting enough for her. Marilyn could only leave in despair. Wednesday has always been independent. If the principal wouldn't let her leave the campus, she would find a way to escape. So she contacted Tyler to come and pick her up at 8 o'clock in the evening. But before that, she needed to find a way out first. She immediately thought of her roommate Enid, who happened to be a werewolf. Conveniently, it was a full moon tonight. Enid could lie about having to transform, which would help them mix up a pass to get out of school. They decided to go for it and successfully made their way out. 3 of them looked at each other. Tyler had thought he was in for a romantic evening for the sexy two, while Enid had thought it was a girls' night out. But in the end, they all became Wednesday's errand runners. Meanwhile, Xavier arrived at the dorm, intending to explain the purpose of the painting he secretly made of Wednesday. But he ended up in an empty room. Fortunately, he learned about Wednesday's whereabouts through the unmanned hand. By this time, the three had already arrived at the old Gates residence. They went to a garage and found the sedan that had hit the town mayor. Then, in the living room, they found a family portrait of the Gates. All four in the picture were dead. Surely Goody didn't bring them here for this reason. Next, the group entered the study, filled with cobwebs and dust. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place except for a strangely clean pillar. Clearly, this was where the secret mechanism was located. Wednesday gently pressed it, and the bookshelf slowly opened. Then a shrine with a painting of crackstone came into view, and beside it were the bloody warning words. She touched the candles on it. They were still warm, indicating that someone had not gone far. She decided to split up. Tyler went to check other parts of the house, while she and Enid went upstairs. They quickly found a room that was unusually clean. The bed was made, there were no cobwebs or dust. On the dressing table, a makeup box bore the initials of Gates's sister, indicating this was Laurel's room. But it's impossible for her to move back to the house because she had drowned overseas 25 years ago. Suddenly, there was a crash of breaking glass from outside, accompanied by Tyler shouting and screams. A monster had appeared to flex its ugly figure. They immediately hid in an elevator, barely managing to close the door before the monster arrived. The monster, however, did not plan to let them go. It tore a hole in the door to see inside. Due to age, the ropes were deteriorating and couldn't support their heavy weight. They fell to the very bottom of the house and ended up in a secret warehouse. Wednesday turned on the main light. The warehouse was filled with the remains of victims, but they had no time to worry about that, with a monster still on their tail. At the last minute, they managed to escape through a window. Enid was scared to wet her pants and wanted to leave immediately, but Wednesday went back to rescue Tyler. She found him injured at the entrance. As she was about to check his injuries, Xavier also arrived. Wednesday couldn't help but wonder why he always showed up at such opportune times. They later took Tyler home to treat his wounds. The sheriff suddenly returned. Without much explanation, Wednesday took him to the scene to see the evidence she had discovered. To her surprise, all the physical evidence had been cleaned up. Despite her explanations, the sheriff still thought Wednesday was a troublemaker and warned her to stay away from his son and the case. Back at school, Principal Weems was already waiting. Although Wednesday had violated school rules and the principal had the power to expel her, she still didn't think she was wrong. She took out a prophecy painting about the academy, drawn by Rowan's mother before her death. It said that Wednesday was destined to destroy the academy and that Rowan had tried to murder her twice because of this. Wednesday believed it wasn't like that. Instead, she would save the academy. So she asked the principal for another chance, which was the only time she had ever begged. The principal hesitated for a moment but decided to tolerate her one more time. If it happened again, she would be expelled. Enid felt used by Wednesday and almost lost her life because of it. She berated Wednesday for being too selfish. Now, she didn't want to trust or live with her anymore. Their friendship had capsized. This reminded Wednesday of Goody's warning. She was destined to be alone. Although she didn't care about having friends, Enid's departure still made her a little sad. She had taken Laurel's makeup box when she left the old Gates house earlier. A few photos were hidden underneath, all candid shots of her in secret. It was clear that the perpetrator was after her. The house, the Gates family, Crackstone, the monster, and her inexplicably wrapped up like a spider's web. She knew that the mayor must have key evidence in his hands, but with the perpetrator reaching the severely injured mayor, the mayor was forever silenced in the hospital. The case was once again shrouded in mystery. At the mayor's funeral, Wednesday was observing everyone's tears and masks. The killer was surely among these people, and she was already prepared to respond. Then, a mysterious figure was hiding behind a large tree. She hurriedly followed, but lost the figure halfway. Just as she was feeling puzzled, the person emerged out of nowhere. Wednesday drew out her umbrella handle in response, only to be paralyzed by the man. Upon recognizing the man's bald head, she laughed. The mysterious person was her bald uncle who lived far away. He said he was passing by to visit Wednesday, but in fact, he had done something in another place that required him to hide for a few days. He used his niece as a safe haven. Wednesday temporarily hid him and his bald head in Eugene's Wasp Society. She shared with him the terrifying things that had happened at the academy recently and showed him the picture of the monster. He recognized that it was a creature called Hyde, which was a normal person under normal circumstances. However, when it got angry, it would turn into Hyde and start a massacre. As far as he knew, before establishing Nevermore Academy, its founder traveled the world, documenting every community of the Outcasts. That notebook was hidden in the safe of the Nightshade library, so they agreed to go in and investigate at night. But when Wednesday arrived there, she first encountered Xavier, who was also looking for information. He knew why Wednesday came here and explicitly told her there was no information about the monster here. He told her that he was her real friend, and when no one else believed her, only he believed her theory. But what he got in the end was only suspicion and lies. But Wednesday challenged him, saying that if that was the case, why was Xavier present every time the monster attacked? He was there on the day Rowan died. On the outreach day, the monster had just disappeared for a few minutes, and he appeared. What's more, he even drew a picture of the monster's cave. He even tried to kill to silence Eugene when he went to investigate. Xavier was at a loss for words and had to leave in silence. As soon as he left, her uncle sprang out from behind to flex his bald head, but got some freehand service from the creepy hand. After that, they started to get down to business. They found the safe behind a painting, and with the hand's help, they successfully cracked it and stole the notebook. According to the records, Hyde, a creature born of mutation, has always been in a dormant state, awakened only by traumatic events. It can also be awakened through chemical inducement or hypnosis, which would create a bond between Hyde and its liberator, with the monster viewing its liberator as its master. Regardless of the requests made by its new master, Hyde willingly serves them. This implies that the murderer sought by Wednesday is not a singular individual. Xavier, in all likelihood, is the person behind the scenes. He seemed rushed on the phone, as if he had someone to meet, but he no longer wished to reveal anything to Wednesday. Her uncle installed a tracker on Xavier's Tesla bike, and they followed him on a stolen moped into a deep forest. Astonishingly, they discovered Xavier in a secret meeting with the psychologist, muttering about a dream he had where the psychologist died. From Wednesday's perspective, Xavier is perhaps the real monster, with the psychologist being the one who awakened him. She suspected that the psychologist must have discovered that Xavier is a Hyde and woke him using hypnotherapy. While the group was studying the notebook in a coffee shop, the sheriff suddenly walked out and had Tyler post a wanted sign at the door. The wanted criminal was a deranged bank robber. Upon close inspection, this was none other than Wednesday's bald uncle. Unbeknownst to everyone, he had already gone into hiding. Tyler didn't expose him, but instead asked Wednesday to meet him at the Crackstone Crypt that evening, leaving no room for excuses. Feeling helpless, she agreed to the appointment. At night, the spying hand watched over the notebook at home while Wednesday went to the Crackstone Crypt. Tyler had thoughtfully decorated the place, making it quite cozy and romantic. They ended up watching a Daniel C.C. horror movie together. Taking advantage of the fishy atmosphere, Tyler confessed his feelings to Wednesday. Tasting the fruits of love for the first time, she was instantly swayed by his sweet words. As they were about to kiss, they were interrupted by the sheriff investigating the case. He had just found a stolen moped by the lakeside and was looking around for the thief, never expecting to run into these smelly two. He was truly fed up with these two. Because their moment was ruined, they agreed to continue their conversation another time. When Wednesday returned to her dormitory, it was in disarray. Her first thought was that the notebook had been stolen, and turning around, she even discovered that the spying hand was horrifically nailed to the wall. Wednesday quickly removed it and woke her sleeping uncle from his pig-like sleep. Her uncle, possessing the power to control lightning, was familiar with electrotherapy. Despite several attempts, the hand remained motionless. He thought about giving up on the treatment, but Wednesday couldn't accept the loss of the hand. After several more attempts, the hand miraculously revived. Wednesday swore that whoever was behind this would pay. Since her uncle's identity as a thief had been revealed, he decided to stay and care for the hand for one final night before leaving early the next morning. Wednesday informed Principal Weems about this, and what puzzled her was why the principal chose to keep it a secret, despite knowing that the monster they were looking for was called Hyde. In fact, the principal had her own reasons. The Academy had conducted research on Hyde for many years, but it was unpredictable and extremely violent. 30 years ago, the Academy had to completely ban further research on Hyde. If the sheriff discovered its existence, the Academy would face permanent closure. As the principal, she would never let this happen. After leaving the office, Wednesday ran into Bianca halfway. Led by her, she met with the mayor's son. He had found his father's investigation files on his computer. The mayor seemed to have been looking for a woman named Laurel, Gates's sister. According to the British police, Laurel had drowned, but her body was never found. A year ago, a 90-year-old wealthy woman bought the old Gates estate. After her mysterious death, all her wealth was given to her caretaker, who was also called Laurel. It turned out Laurel faked her own death to take revenge on the person she believed was responsible for her family's misfortune. Wednesday guessed that the psychologist was Laurel in disguise because no one could infiltrate a hospital more easily and unnoticed than a psychologist. The roses she left when visiting Eugene serve as the best proof. Those flowers were the same species as those she found at the old Gates mansion. The reason for her to stay in such a remote place was not because of its charm, but because it would be easier for her to manipulate others to achieve her revenge. However, the psychologist didn't have time to deal with Wednesday's wild theories and was preparing to call a judge to suggest sending her to a mental hospital. Wednesday didn't say much. She just told her to take care of herself and hurriedly left the clinic. The psychologist hastily informed Principal Weems of her erratic behavior. Then the sound of a shattering bottle echoed in the room. As she slowly opened the door, a monster appeared to lunge at her, causing her to meet her demise. In the hospital corridor, the sheriff soon conveyed the news of the psychologist's death. Wednesday was furious, thinking it was all the madness of Xavier. She decided to confront him face to face, but Xavier refused to admit it. Wednesday didn't dawdle. She directly unveiled a canvas. The painting, made by Xavier according to his dream, depicted the moment of the psychologist's death. In order to trap him, Wednesday went to any length, even placing all the victim's belongings in the room. With concrete evidence, Xavier, the scapegoat, was finally arrested. Now that the murderer has been caught, Enid moved back to the dormitory. Wednesday was extremely satisfied. She decided to share all the good news with Tyler. The two decided to continue the fishy moment they left unfinished yesterday. She took the initiative to kiss him, and unexpectedly, her psychic vision was triggered again. She saw the scene of the psychologist's murder in her illusion. The real murderer turned out to be Tyler, the one hiding beside her all along. Shocked, Wednesday hurriedly fled the scene. She felt frustrated and betrayed, unable to believe the boy who she shared her first kiss with turned out to be a monstrous serial killer. After calming herself down, Wednesday lured Tyler deep into the woods and bluntly exposed his identity. She speculated that the psychologist might have awakened him during a treatment. Hyde is usually loyal to his master, so why would he kill the psychologist? It's then revealed that on the outreach day, Wednesday told Tyler she would go to the old assembly hall, and the Hyde monster appeared there immediately. Before the party, Tyler accidentally heard her and Eugene discussing the monster's cave, so he immediately informed the psychologist. Just as the psychologist wanted to destroy the monster's existence evidence, Eugene unexpectedly witnessed everything. The psychologist had no choice but to send Tyler to clean up the mess. What's more, Tyler even deliberately injured himself at the old Gates mansion that night to mislead her. After the revelation, Tyler challenged her why she would risk taking him here to confront him alone. But indeed, Wednesday had brought several helpers. Seeing this, Tyler wanted to flee for his shitty life, but was stopped by Bianca, who used hypnotism to knock him out. When he woke up again, he was in Xavier's art studio. Tyler wanted to struggle again, so Wednesday simply presented the evidence. It turns out that Tyler's mother was also an outcast accepted into the academy. The sheriff fell in love with her and married her. From the medical record stolen by the spying hand from his garage, it clearly showed that Tyler's mother transformed into a Hyde monster due to postpartum depression. The sheriff lived in fear, not knowing whether she had passed this trait to their son, Tyler. But Tyler refused to admit that he was a Hyde. In that case, Wednesday had no choice but to stimulate him to transform. The students were horrified by her brutal behavior and expressed their withdrawal. But Wednesday insisted on doing so. Bianca had no choice but to seek the help of Principal Weems. She immediately called the sheriff and arrived in time before Wednesday could kill him. She was taken to the police station. Strangely, the sheriff did not bring up the charge of kidnapping. It was because he heard a conversation in his son's psychotherapy. The psychologist said that when they talked about Tyler's mother, Tyler would become cold and even suddenly lose control, as if he had turned into a different person. Therefore, the sheriff judged that his son must have inherited his mother's Hyde trait, but he just refused to admit it. When leaving the police station, Tyler admitted everything in front of Wednesday and arrogantly asked her how it felt to fail. Wednesday had to swallow her anger because she now had no evidence to show Tyler was a Hyde. What's worse, her actions completely angered Principal Weems. No matter how she explained, the principal no longer believed her. The only condition for the sheriff not to prosecute Wednesday was to expel her from the academy. She had to pack up and leave tomorrow. In desperation, she could only pin all her hopes on Xavier. She admitted that she was used by Tyler, who was the real Hyde monster. She knew that Xavier had always had a mental connection with the monster, so she asked him if he had painted any new clues recently. Xavier found it hilarious. He was in such a predicament all because of Wednesday. He finally realized that anyone involved in her affairs would get hurt. Now she still wanted his help, which was simply toxic. Wednesday was kicked out like this, and she had to return to the dormitory to pack her things, ready to leave the academy once and for all. She learned from Enid that Eugene had awakened, so she made her last quest to the principal, asking to see Eugene in the hospital. Later, Wednesday visited the hospital to see Eugene, who had just woken up. She advised him not to return to school for now, as the monster was still at large. Eugene vaguely remembered someone burning the cave that night. The person was dressed in black clothing and a pair of red boots. Wednesday suddenly realized that the mastermind behind the scenes was none other than the dorm supervisor, Marilyn, who often wore a pair of red boots while tending to plants. Wednesday confronted her, but without evidence, Marilyn obviously wouldn't confess. It was indeed hard for the others to believe Wednesday's theory. However, she initially thought it was the psychologist who had awakened Tyler with hypnosis. Now it seemed that it was caused by the chemicals extracted from plants by Marilyn. Marilyn's father had always been closely monitoring all the outcasts in the town. So, when she was very young, he told her the secrets of Tyler's family. That's why Marilyn targeted Tyler and manipulated him by telling him the true nature of his mother. Initially, there were situations where Tyler lost control, so he was handcuffed and locked in the cave. When the psychologist almost discovered their secret, Marilyn ordered Tyler to kill the psychologist and frame it on Xavier. Since that's the case, Marilyn revealed she was actually Gates' sister, Laurel, who came back to seek revenge. Wednesday was curious. If Marilyn simply hated the outcasts, why did she also harm normal people? In fact, she was playing a bigger game. Wednesday couldn't possibly catch the train home because Marilyn had sent Tyler to intercept her midway. But what Marilyn didn't expect was that the Tyler in front of her was transformed from Principal Weems. Seeing her plan exposed, Marilyn completely lost it and hit Weems with the anemone poison, causing her to drop dead on the spot. Wednesday, who was caught off guard, was knocked out. The spying hand witnessed everything. Meanwhile, Enid received a call from Eugene. He was anxious and told her that Marilyn was the mastermind. Wednesday had taken the principal to confront her, but now there were no news about them. At this time, the spying hand hurried back and told her everything that had just happened. Enid immediately took Ajax to find the members of the Nightshade Society for help. Eugene also realized the danger. Despite his mother's objections, he insisted on rescuing Wednesday. Afterward, Wednesday was taken to the Crackstone Crypt. As she opened her eyes, the real Tyler appeared before her, his face twisted in a sinister grin. He taunted her with a sense of déjà vu before storming out to wait outside. In the room, Marilyn was busy organizing the body parts floating in jars, as if preparing for an evil ceremony. Wednesday finally understood why she collected these pieces. She intended to resurrect Crackstone, the only person who had almost succeeded in wiping out the outcasts. The book that disappeared in the Pilgrim's World was also stolen by Marilyn. The book clearly recorded that Goody not only killed Crackstone, but also cursed his soul and sealed it in a stone coffin with blood. Now, Wednesday, sharing the bloodline of her ancestor, is the only one who can unlock the seal on a blood moon night. Therefore, Marilyn had been waiting for the right moment, and she dragged Wednesday to the stone coffin, cut her palm with a knife, and let the blood drip onto the coffin. After the blood was absorbed, Marilyn began to chant a spell. The weak Wednesday took the opportunity to take out a knife and unlock her shackles. At this moment, abnormalities began to appear around the stone coffin, with tap water boiling and heavy smokes lurking around. After a burst of lightning and thunder, Crackstone was resurrected amidst rolling smoke. He then bad-mouthed Goody and vowed to seek his revenge on her and her descendant. Before Wednesday could react, she was stabbed by the newly resurrected Crackstone and fell to the ground, barely alive. Crackstone and Marilyn left triumphantly. At the same time, the members of the Nightshade Society gathered and discussed how to deal with the evils. They decided to act separately. Bianca would take the students to a safe place, while Enid took the spying hand to find Wednesday. The seriously injured Wednesday saw Goody, who instructed her to pierce Crackstone's black heart. Only then would he disappear forever. Wednesday wondered if Goody was blind. How was she supposed to kill anyone in this wounded state? Goody then told her to take out the necklace her mother had given her. It was a powerful amulet and a conduit for summoning souls. It could let Goody attach to Wednesday's body and heal her, but once this happened, Goody would disappear forever. Due to the urgency of the situation, they began the spell without hesitation. Goody's soul entered Wednesday's body, and at the moment she disappeared, all Wednesday's wounds were completely healed. Coincidentally, Enid, who had been unable to complete her transformation before, became a werewolf at this moment. As soon as Wednesday ran out, she encountered Tyler. Tyler didn't waste any time and transformed into a hide monster right in front of her, pinning her sexy body to a tree stump. Just when Hyde was about to strike her down, a wolf sprung out and wrestled muscles with him. Wednesday recognized the wolf as Enid's transformation. At the same time, the sheriff rushed to the forest with Xavier to find Tyler. He had known long ago that his son was a Hyde, so he had installed a tracker on him. Just as the wolf was about to be killed by Hyde, the sheriff fired a shot from a distance. Hyde then shifted his attention to his father. Luckily, the wolf quickly intercepted him, and a fast and furious battle ensued. Eventually, Hyde was defeated and transformed back into Tyler, while Enid was also in bad shape. The spying hand seized this opportunity to release Xavier. The situation at the academy was even worse. The students hadn't even finished evacuating when Crackstone barged in with a menacing air. Marilyn was swaggering about the place, but ended up angering her master. Crackstone declared he would cleanse the world of their loathsome kind, then ignited a massive fire in the academy to eliminate the outcasts. Wednesday rushed back to the academy to confront Crackstone. As she wondered what resurrection witchcraft he employed, Xavier suddenly appeared, shooting an arrow at Crackstone. However, not only did the arrow fail to harm him, but Wednesday, who tried to save Xavier, was also struck by an arrow. Thankfully, she wasn't seriously injured. She instructed Xavier to evacuate the students while she faced off with Crackstone in a deadly duel. But how could one defeat magic with bare hands? After a few moves, Wednesday was down, pinned to the ground. Unexpectedly, Bianca played foul and launched a sneak attack, which gave Wednesday an opportunity to strike back. As Crackstone's heart was pierced, he faded away amidst wails of agony. Accompanied by a massive shockwave, Crackstone's equipment exploded outward. However, Marilyn was still unwilling to give up, determined to take Wednesday down with her. Before she could fire a shot, a swarm of bees attacked her and subdued her. It turned out to be the seemingly weak Eugene who took action, impressing Wednesday. Without hesitation, Wednesday shattered Marilyn with a kick. The Nevermore Academy eventually diffused this unprecedented crisis. Wednesday and the badly wounded Enid embraced tightly. While Principal Weems could be annoying at times, she was strong, sacrificing for the things she truly loved. Along with this came the end of the semester. Everyone said their goodbyes. Xavier, whose charges were dropped, gave her a cell phone with his number stored in it, hoping they could keep in touch. Wednesday, who was reluctant to be a slave to electronics, happily accepted. On her way home, she received some text messages on the phone, which were pictures of her meeting with Tyler and her recent goodbye with Xavier. The text on them read, "I'm watching you." Wednesday realized that secrets were still lurking in the dark corners of Jericho Town. Meanwhile, Tyler, who was taken by the police, suddenly started transforming to flex his monstrous eyes, which seems to imply that he will be right back in Season 2. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.